attack black people after they've been murdered when they did absolutely nothing wrong, you're pushing us to the limit. And what do I mean by that? You're asking us to talk about history, the history of the South. This is in Georgia. What happened in Georgia? There were savages in Georgia. It was the ancestors of the white right-wingers. They were absolute savages. They murdered people. They lynched people. They raped people. They enslaved people. They took babies from their mothers and sold them as property. You want to talk about savages? Your ancestors were the biggest savages the world has ever seen. So don't you dare call a black man a savage after you murdered him. Don't you dare do that. I'm so sick of African Americans being called violent when the world's worst violence was done to them, not by them, to them, not by them. For God's sake, you want to do racist stereotypes? If it fit anywhere, and it doesn't, but if it fit anywhere, it would certainly fit white right-wingers in the South, who has hundreds of years of history of being savages. Savages! They snatched babies, and they sold them as property, and they raped their mothers. Savages! That's what they were. You want to talk about stereotypes? Screw all of you who still defend that Confederacy. That monstrosity. Anyone who defends that is a barbaric savage.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. White people tend to be, not always, tend to be adrenaline junkies, and they pay lots of money to do extreme sports that'll fucking kill them because they don't know what it's like to live in danger every day. So they have to go find it and seek danger for fun.
And they're doing this shit to try to fulfill fantasies of being violent towards black people. That's where they get this adrenaline rush. And so they can then turn around and victimize themselves when black students say, get the fuck off our campus.
Sometimes when I listen to a bunch of discourse that goes on this app, it just makes me realize that y'all will blame everything but the true three pillars: white supremacy, patriarchy, capitalism. Everybody is talking in circles. Meanwhile, they refuse to acknowledge the gigantic fucking elephant in the room. Genuinely, all of our problems stem from those three things. And until we address those three things, we will continue to talk about some 50-50 dates, some boycotting the African braiding shops, talking about the election that happened how many months ago, because y'all refuse to blame the true demons, white men. They are the people destroying this country, and nobody wants to acknowledge that. Y'all over here blaming Palestinians for being bombed and not wanting to vote for the folks that are bombing them, instead of blaming the white man that sat their stupid asses at home. Y'all talking about some you don't want to work anymore, you want to sit at home, and instead of realizing it is because you are exhausted by capitalism, you think that a man is going to solve that issue. You don't realize that the new work that you'll be doing is the domestic labor in the home, and that still will be affected by capitalism, because you will be undervalued and underpaid in your home. Y'all talking about some, oh, men don't want to be providers anymore, instead of realizing that the white men in charge have made it untenable to live anymore, to pay for dates anymore, to even live by yourself. 1-bedroom apartments are $2,000. And y'all think that is tenable for life? Men over here complaining about some male loneliness epidemic, instead of understanding that their refusal to get rid of the patriarchy is the reason why they're suffering so. Y'all are diasporing yourselves down the alt-right pipeline, instead of understanding a lot of these issues is because people don't have money. And because they are living in a scarcity mindset, so much so that they think when immigrants come here, they are taking the little that they already have, instead of seeing that it's the white men that are hoarding all of the shit. Immigrants are coming here thinking that they are better than the folks who already live here, instead of understanding that the white man has shoved propaganda down your throat and you have believed it. And they're coming here and antagonizing the folks that have lived under this imperial regime for generations. Until we acknowledge these three things, we will continue to have these dumbass talking points and continue to fight on this here Beyonce's internet.
There's a problem when the savage starts calling the people who he terrorized savages. You know, there's a problem when the privileged start victimizing themselves over things that don't really even make them a victim, but actually shows their true nature. And it is sad that right now, history is continuously being whitewashed. Some of these leaders are making sure that they are doing their best to make sure that whatever is told about white history does not include the slavery, does not include how they hurt and mistreated black people. And even if it does include the slavery and how they had slaves, it is so whitewashed that it makes them sell the thing that slavery was actually good and slave owners were actually good to their slaves. They used to give them housing and medical and used to, allow them to have an education and all these things. And this is kind of, it's just being whitewashed, because savages cannot tell you that you are a savage when they are the ones who have killed, they are the ones who have invaded your countries, tore you up from your families, killed most of your family members. Then once they were done, they took you, probably sold you somewhere. You became a slave, either a woman or a man. Then if you were a woman, you were raped. If you got a kid by either of these people, they could even kill you because they don't want to have as inbred child. They literally used to cut women. They used to cut babies from women's stomachs and let you bleed out and die. And those people are the ones who are calling black people savages. Black people have never. Tell us a point. If you're going to call black people savages, give us a point in history where they actually were savages. Because every time a black person has been mentioned or is famous for something, it's because they have made history trying to fight for themselves, trying to make sure that they are, put in the history books, that they gave a little bit of fight. They actually fought a lot to make sure that they are where they are right now. But before I give my full commentary, let's dive and listen to what other people have to say, then we'll come back and talk about it. See you shortly.
Let's talk about this story out of South Africa, because it says everything about hypocrisy and white supremacy. A white farm owner and his workers are on trial for allegedly murdering 2 black women who were unarmed, women who were simply collecting old dairy products. And after they allegedly murdered them, they fed their bodies to pigs. Think about that for a second. They fed their bodies, human beings, to animals. The part that pisses me off the most with this is these are the same kind of people who look at black folks in Africa or America or anywhere else and call us savages. But tell me this, what is more savage than shooting 2 hungry women and then treating their bodies like trash? What's more barbaric than covering it up by feeding their bodies to animals? This isn't just a crime. This is a reflection of a long, ugly history. If you remember, colonizers stole land, they massacred villages, and they called it civilization. Slave masters whipped, raped, and lynched black bodies, and then had church the next morning. Apartheid made people strangers on their own land. And then when we resisted, they called us violent. See the pattern? Whenever black people act out of survival, we're branded as criminals. When white supremacists murder in cold blood, it's protecting property. It's isolated. It's lost in the news cycle somehow. And then you got politicians like Trump, who push this lie of a so-called genocide against white farmers while ignoring the everyday violence against black South Africans. That's not just hypocrisy. That's propaganda trying to flip the script and make the oppressor the victim. You want to know the truth? Black people are not savages. What's in our blood is resilience, creativity, and survival against all odds. But what's in their history, their very foundation of white supremacy, is violence, exploitation, and the dehumanization of others. That's the real savagery. So the next time someone dares to point the finger at us, remind them, we didn't invent this cycle of brutality. They did. And we've been surviving it, exposing it, and rising above it for centuries. Now let me ask you this. When are we going to let them stop defining the narrative and start forcing the world to see the truth for what it is.
There always has to be one. There is always someone who has bought into the manufactured idea that people with melanin are more violent than people without. There is always someone out there loud and wrong that slips into the comments with a subtly racist remark, and then when I call them out on it, they get blatantly racist. But I always wonder, can you blame these people for how they think? Because the media always portrays us as violent. Look at the difference between the protests a couple days ago and the protests of 2020. 95% of those protests in 2020 were peaceful, uneventful, but they were not covered. And the only thing that was covered was when the riots happened, which were started and escalated by the law enforcement. The only thing that people like this saw were the escalated images. And without the education system actually teaching history and unwhitewashed history in our schools, it is really hard for people like this to understand and know the truth unless they actually go out of their way to read and learn the truth, which, come on. Most people can't even find a good source to the truth of real history. A lot of the time, we only learn about 5 people that did great acts in the civil rights movement and beyond. We don't really know much about the people that helped us get out of slavery itself. And a lot of people don't even know what happened during slavery, being that schools now are trying to equate it to indentured servitude with free housing and healthcare and food. But if you are feeling some kind of way about your level of knowledge about Black history, I got exactly what you need. Black AF History, The Unwhitewashed Story of America by Michael Harriot. This book goes from the start of slavery and how it started in the first place, all the way to the two-party system and how that was even invented to keep Black people in check. This book talks about the resistance leaders that we had during the slavery times, as well as the leaders that we had even after the Emancipation Proclamation. This book even talks about the Second Amendment and the creation of correctional facilities and officers. After reading this book, you can get a sense of how America was created and the systems that were put in place from the very beginning to keep Black people down. It even goes into how ghettos were created and how the hood was formed, creating so-called gangsters and hood life in the Black community in order to keep us at the bottom. I don't expect the person who wrote this comment to actually want to enlighten themselves and read this book, but for the people who are waking up and the people who are realizing that Black people have been targeted and you really want to know and understand our history, this book right here is going to be what you need.
So I started a new series here on TikTok. It's called Historical Investigations. Is where I look at old, iconic, nefarious, infamous historical pictures of white people being crazily racist, while Black people more often than not are trying to break barriers and make history and desegregate and do things of that nature. And I've been having a lot of fun. Getting a lot of pushback.
Are saying things along the lines of, "Oh, this is so old. Oh, this is doing too much. Oh man, why are we talking about a teenager who's now an old man? Well, this was 50 years ago, man."
That I say, why not? Why not? Why am I not allowed to talk about these things? You see, Dorothy Counts is still alive. Elizabeth Eckford, she's still alive. 3 of the North Little Rock 6, they're still alive. Just like you can't tell the story of the NBA without LeBron, or the story of the NFL without Tom Brady, or the story of America without slavery. Not tell the stories of these amazing Black people without telling the stories of the white people that stood in their way. And then I get comments like this that say, "Oh, this page just about bringing clout to stuff that happened years ago." My friend, what you call clout, I call justice.
I'd like to start off by speaking about the Black people, the modernized ones, the specific ones who, get embarrassed or talk to other Black people about how they should not still be crying over their history because they're not the ones who were enslaved. They should not ask for reparations because they're also not the ones who were enslaved. They're not the ones who went through the things that their grandparents or their great-grandparents or just their ancestors went through. And for people who think like that, especially as a Black person, I need to make you understand one thing. If given a chance, those white people that you're fighting for will enslave you immediately now. And if it were not for those ancestors dying while fighting for your rights, the rights that you're enjoying right now, obviously not all the rights you're enjoying, but they did put a dent in the racist system in America. If it were not for them, you'll probably still be getting gunned down. You'll probably not even be able to own land or have a job. You will probably be enslaved, and they will not blink to lynch you. Those people used to lynch, they used to kill babies, they used to kill moms, they used to kill a whole family and go to church. They used to have prison cells where they have imprisoned black people below their churches. They could even build churches under the skeletons of where they have buried black people who were enslaved. But you want to talk about how it affects black people of right now. Mind you, they paid the people who enslaved your grandparents, they paid them for taking away the slaves from them so that they don't undergo any kind of problems financially, because now they don't have like cheap labor, so now they can buy machines and they can, improvise in a certain way or two. And yet, your grandparents, your great-grandparents had to start from zero. They were given nothing. They were promised, a mule. They were promised 40 acres and a mule. That has never happened to date. So do not go behind black people's backs and try to be cool when you're siding with the enemy, when you're siding with the people who will not think twice about gunning you down. You cannot, do that. It's not okay. And what you need to realize is the problem as to why you're thinking like that. And most white people are so desensitized right now because they talk to black people about black people history like their opinion matters in a way. And they start talking about how black people take black history a little bit too seriously, and they take slavery, too seriously. Those are things of the past, and we should not be living in the past. Why not? You're the ones who chose to build a nation under the pain and under the torture of other people. Why should those people who are tortured let it go? It's their history too. Why should they let it go? To make you feel better? And I had this lady who was talking about how, not why, but it is not nice, teaching kids in schools that, about history and all this enslavement, because it's not practiced now, it's not relevant to teach them about it. Then why do we teach about Columbus? Why do we talk about Christopher Columbus? Why do we celebrate 4th of July? Nothing is anything without history. To celebrate black people and their strides and where they are right now to being one of the most successful, one of the most beautiful, and one of the most educated bunch in the world, you have to talk about their past. The same way you celebrate your holidays, because the past matters, whether you like it or not. So you cannot be talking about how a white kid will feel bad when they know that their forefathers, made other people go through just terrible situations. What about the black kids? Why are you talking about your white kids? What about the black kids? What about them? They have to live in a system still that has not been improved ever since their grandparents were alive. The system that has not been improved, meaning whatever their grandparents were taught by their parents and whatever their parents were taught by their grandparents, they have to be taught by their parents. They have to be taught how to act, how to walk, how to talk, how to handle certain situations, because they could easily get killed. And yet we want to make white kids feel good because they just have to live with the fact that their parents or their parents of their parents were racist and they lynched people. They should live with that too, because that pain and that history will help them not repeat the same things. If they feel bad about it, it means they will try their best not to repeat the mistakes of their ancestors. And if anything, it's not black people who are to blame. It's yourselves. You're the ones who are failing. Because if you cannot tell your kids about how big of savages you are, then that will mean that you want to continue putting this show, and then your kids can come and do certain things to you and to other people. And that is not right. Stop whitewashing history and stop acting like white history and black history are not intertwined, especially in America. They are intertwined. And no matter how much you want to whitewash it and desensitize it to make yourself feel better or sleep better at night, it will never help you because it will always come back to you. As long as there are people who are still enjoying the fruits of the labor of black people, at one point or the other, they are going to have to pay for it. They will pay for it. Some of these rich people who built, so many things that they have right now in their wealth from black people's pain, some of their kids, you see very rich white people having kids who are like complete drug addicts, who do crazy things, who are continuously imprisoned, and they have to be bailed out all the time. And they go through this harassment issues, and they have all these kinds of problems that they have to be bailed out of. That is not them. You're making your kids carry the pain, and they're carrying your history on their backs. Things that you have refused to tell them that you actually paid. Whatever they're enjoying is because of black people. You're refusing to tell them the actual history. You're refusing to tell them the actual reality, so that they can deal with it however they want to. They can at least know their history well and choose whether to follow what you're telling them or support black people. And I'm so happy that right now there are so many white people who are actually changing ways and coming back to this side and supporting and realizing that their ancestors and their parents and their grandparents were savages, and you don't have the right to call people who have never done you wrong savages. If you found Africans living however they wanted to live, they were not wearing clothes, that's okay, that's fine. They did not have these tarmacked roads. They shared everything. They had their own religion. They had kings. They had leadership. Everything used to work out. And even if they had slaves, because, white people like throwing this, oh, black people also had slaves, so why can't we? Even Egypt, yes. Even Egypt has had slaves, and that's why they were one of the most modernized countries in the world. But that does not concern you. It's none of your business. That's another country. They did not come and take white people and enslave them. They were enslaving themselves in their own borders. You guys went to another country, another continent, took these people, separated them from their culture, their religion, their history, took them to your country, enslaved them, and not the good enslaving. You killed, and the means of transport itself was crazy because you used to put people, a container that can only fit, for example, 20 people, you would put like 100 people inside that and never open for them, so they would pee, poop in the same place, and you will not even give them food until they got to where you're taking them. So don't talk about black people being savages. You're the ones who are savages. Black people did not ask for you to invade their countries. They did not ask for you to colonize them or for you to teach them your technological ways and your good ways. No one asked you for that. You're the ones who chose to enforce it onto us. So when black people fight you and when you say it's not that deep, believe me, believe them also. It's that deep. It is that deep. It is that deep. Do not victimize yourself while you know you're the oppressor. You cannot victimize yourself as an oppressor. That can never happen. And I'd like for me to read a comment that I read on one of the TikToks. Here, the person said, when the Chinese discovered gunpowder, they made fireworks. When Europeans discovered it, they made guns. Yeah, let's sit with that one. Yet we are the savages, huh? Anyway, if you've liked today's video, if you've enjoyed it, if you've learned something, kindly consider sharing, subscribing, and liking. I'd love to see you again another time. Kindly come back. Let us continue to learn and to grow together. And I hope to see you in the next video. Goodbye.